Welcome to Backstage with Richard Ridge. My guest, Randy Graff, is one of Broadway's loveliest leading ladies. You know her from such shows as her Tony Award-winning turn in City of Angels, the original Fantine in Les Mis, Laughter on the 23rd Floor, Fiddler on the Roof, Falsettos, and A Class Act. She recently co-starred alongside Billy Crystal in Mr. Saturday Night, a new musical comedy based on the hit film. It was beautifully filmed on Broadway and is streaming now as of December 1st on Broadway HD. Broadway HD is the only streaming service offering premium full-length stage plays and musicals captured specifically for multi-platform viewing to theater fans across the globe. Please say hello to my friend, Randy Graff.
Hello.
First off, how are you and where are you?
How am I? I'm fine. I'm in Florida. I'm in my mother's den, so I don't know how the internet's going to be. And I'm here for a while. I mean, it's been 2 weeks. It's going to be another 2 weeks. My mom's 90 years old, and we're getting ready to sell her house and move her into a senior community. So there's a lot going on. So it's really nice to take a time out, Richie, and talk to you.
This is wonderful. Right back at you. Like I said, first of all, congratulations on the streaming of Mr. Saturday Night. How excited are you?
I'm just thrilled that so many more people are going to get to see it because, you know, aside from the people who live far away under normal, healthy global circumstances, it's great to get people back in the theater without really being in the theater, and Broadway HD is the closest thing we have to the real thing, you know. So I'm excited for people to find
This was so beautifully filmed. No one does it better than Broadway HD. It's like sitting in house seats in the theater watching this glorious musical.
I haven't seen it yet, so I'm so excited to hear that. I mean, I know that, I was told, Billy told us that it was captured beautifully and that it got the warmth and the heart and the strength of the show. So I'm really thrilled.
Because it must make you feel wonderful that now anybody can just go to Broadway HD,
Yes.
purchase the streaming and just watch it anywhere they want, anywhere in the world. They can do it again. They can rent it again. I mean, it's got to be so exciting that you're reaching this whole global audience now, not just a local audience here in New York.
That's true. I can't get over. Remember, let's look at our generation, Richie, like when we were home obsessing over cast albums, right? And playing them over and over and over again. And I don't know about you, but I lived close enough to the city that I could get in and buy a standing room seat for $10. I don't know where you're from, but were you one of those people, one of those musical theater lovers / nerds, and I say that with love, who obsessed about the Broadway, the original Broadway cast albums and couldn't get in to see it? Where were you doing that?
Okay, so you and I have the same upbringing as millions of others do, because I was brought up on Long Island. And I fell in love with my parents' record collection, which was all cast albums. And I was like, please, for my birthdays, just take me to Broadway shows. And they used to take me every year. And then when I was 11 and 12, my friend and I knew how to get on the Long Island Railroad, go to Broadway, and we would see shows.
So that's why you're Richie Ridge. Now I get it. That's why you do what you do. You think about these kids in the middle of nowhere who are musical theater lovers, and they can't get into town, or elderly people who can't make the trip. So this is the next best thing. And I want to, stoplight. That's it. A stoplight. Yep. So I want to encourage everybody who sits down to watch our show on Broadway HD. I want to encourage you all to sit with family and friends, and to bring everybody into the room together, and to dim the lights, and to turn off your cell phones, and to have as close to a Broadway experience as you can,
And that's what this is. I mean, seriously, that's the nice thing about, kids today. I mean, as long as you can live with one street lamp or whatever in your town, but as long as you have some kind of internet service, this stuff is all made possible for a kid who's like, oh my God, I love the theater. I'm never going to be able to come to Broadway because I live somewhere, out in a rural area, but Broadway comes to them. I have goosebumps just saying this to you, that someone can
Yes.
watch this in their house. Like you said, dim the lights, listen to the overture, watch the curtain go up, and then, Billy Crystal comes out. I
Yes.
mean, it doesn't get any better than this.
Yes.
Let's talk about the show itself. This was one of my favorite musicals of last season. This made me so happy. I think I saw it 4 times. I used to run back to the theater. I was like, I just wanted to get lost, letting the house lights dim and getting lost in this incredible musical and the humor of Billy Crystal and just watching you take us on this incredible journey. What made Mr. Saturday Night so special for you with working on this musical?
Laughter. In a word, it was the amount of laughter and joy that it brought to the audience, especially coming out of the pandemic and people coming back into the theater, even with masks on, being able to hear that sound coming at you. I'd never experienced laughter like that. And you told me that you've seen it about 4
Yep.
times, so you know what I'm talking about. I'm not exaggerating. You experienced it. I'd never experienced that kind of laughter coming at me on stage before, and that was a gift. That was a total gift. And the company is wonderful, talented, wonderful people. And look, I was playing Billy Crystal's wife. Come on. I've been a Billy fan forever. I actually told him during rehearsal that when I was doing My Name is Alice at the Village Gate in 1982, I went to see him with my cast. We went to see him at do stand up, do his stand up routine. It was like kind of like a cellar. He knew where I went, actually, because he remembered it. So what a full circle moment for me to have come from seeing him do stand up when I was, in my mid to late 20s, and then playing his wife. It's just so trippy.
Okay, so let's talk about sharing the stage with him and working with him, watching him hone the material. And then when the audience, I mean, like I said, he got out there. I so vividly remember sitting in the Nederlander Theater watching this show, the ball being thrown back and forth between him and the audience. And I mean, we were laughing so hard. I mean, just watching him create. What was that like being in the rehearsal room with him and watching him hone his craft with this?
Well, it was. We all know that he's a comic genius. Yeah. We know that. He also happens to be a wonderful actor and scene partner. But just looking at that comic mind and how spontaneous and the whole the Jewish scat singing section, he was just did like a little riff on it one day in rehearsal, and we responded, the call and response. So everybody in the room responded with him, and we were hysterical laughing. And then, of course, he went home that night and he came up with an entire routine, which he brought back the next day. And it changed. There were certain set things, but it's wonderful to play off of because you never know what's going to happen. And it keeps you so alive. It keeps you so in the moment. It's just great fun.
Yeah. And then there's your other cast members. I mean, you had David Paymer, who had done the movie with him, and then you had Shoshana Bean. I mean, what was it like working with your cast members?
Well, I have to tell you the history that I have with David Paymer. When I made my Broadway, if we don't count Sarava, and I know you know about Sarava, Richie, if we don't count that, I made my Broadway debut in Grease, in the original Grease. I was an understudy, and David Paymer, this was in 1978, and David Paymer was playing Sonny, and so I've known him. I've known David since 1978. And I guess we haven't really kept up over the years, maybe through mutual friends. But for me, I mean, David is a wonderful human being, so warm and kind, and an incredible actor, as you know. And he was kind of my side acting coach.
Yeah.
Whenever I had trouble with a moment, I would call David and say, Mr. Paymer, I need your help on this moment. It was great to work with him because I didn't really work with him. I just watched him on stage as an understudy. So that was total joy. And Shoshana is a total joy. I've been a fan of hers for years, and she's such a wonderful actress. I mean, everybody in the company, Chasten and the three, and Brian and Jordan and Mylinda and our Wonder Studies. I mean, it was a great, incredibly talented group of people who were fearless in the work. And that's what you strive for. You strive to be uninhibited and brave and fearless and to just jump in, right? Feet first and go to work. And that's what it was like. And that's that for me is the actor's high. I was high.
Yeah. Oh, totally. You were as high as the audience was, I'll tell you. But the other interesting thing about Mr. Saturday Night is you were one of the first musicals, one of the first shows to come in after COVID, or actually in the middle of COVID. So, it gave us such joy to sit there, but I knew a lot of people were still not going out to the theater yet.
Yes. And especially our audience, we catered to an older demographic. There were people who were older and afraid to come back into the theater. So it was, it was tough. It was tough, but we started to build a momentum, and the word of mouth was so great. And when that house was packed and full of people laughing, there was nothing. It was nothing. It was medicine.
Yeah. Again, that's going back to Broadway HD. Now that audience who said, I wanted to come and see Billy Crystal and see this incredible musical, but they didn't feel safe. Now they can watch it in the comfort of their own home.
Yes.
That's why I love that he decided to do this, Billy Crystal, but he's going to open this to a whole other generation and to people everywhere that couldn't get here to see it on Broadway.
It's global.
Yeah.
So,
you and I, we used to go to the library. I used to have my mother drop me off at the library, and they had those incredible cast album sections. They had a great stereo system, and you put these big headphones on, and I'd be like, oh, now I'm listening to the Music Man. Now I'm listening to, the Sound of Music. I just get lost at the library.
Yes.
Into the beautiful world. And all right, then there's John Rando, your incredible director. Talk about pacing of a musical. Your show just flew by. I mean, I know that was Billy too, but boy, what was it like working with your director, John Rando?
My third time.
Yeah.
My third time we did Do Re Mi together. We did Damn Yankees together, and then we did this. I love John Rando. Yeah. He's everything you want in a director, because he leaves you, this is going to come out the wrong way, but he leaves you alone, which is really what an actor wants. An actor wants to be left alone to find it for themselves. And he trusts his actors. He hires people who know what they're doing and trusts them, and will always say, no, I'm not going to say anything. You'll find it. And when you need the help, he comes in and he kind of edits around you. And he's a great guy, Rando. He's just there's no ego there. It's wonderful.
Yeah. I love talking to him all the time because he's like a pal.
Yeah. And he's a cheerleader. I mean, he just loves the theater. He's like Mr. Smith, and Mr. Smith Goes to Washington in the big scene. That's the energy that Rando has.
It's like Mr. Rando of Broadway, as opposed to Mr. Smith Goes to Washington. It's like Mr. Rando goes to Broadway, but he's always been that way, and he's never changed.
No, he has this wonderful childlike energy that is infectious. Yeah.
Then you have an incredible score by Jason Robert Brown and Amanda Green. I mean, and I love the two of them working together on this.
I have to say, I mean, I've been a fan of Jason's. Jason and I have had this ongoing thing that we wanted to work together. That it was certainly a bucket list thing for me. And they had approached me about it before I did the reading 3.5 years ago. They had approached me about it. And at that time I said, no, it wasn't right timing for me. But I said to him, but I really do want to check you off on my bucket list. And then I think Amanda was the perfect lyricist for this show. I think her work is just fantastic.
Because I love the way they worked off each other too. I think it's really great. You talk about the history she has with her dad, Adolph Green, and of course, her mom, but her father being an incredible librettist and lyricist. I mean, This is like the perfect musical that, to me, this was something that, you know, you also would have seen this musical. I mean this in the best way, in the glory days of the 1960s on Broadway, an incredible season, you know?
Oh, totally. It's a traditional musical comedy with a traditional libretto and like a golden age score with some contemporary songs sprinkled in for the younger character for Shoshana, more contemporary pop-like songs. Our team really knew what they were doing, and the writers. We know that the hardest thing to get right
Yeah.
in a musical is the book, and these writers. Babalu and Lowell and Billy, they had never written a libretto for a musical before, okay? And they, because they're so smart, they learned how to do it. We went out of town to Barrington Stage. We learned a lot while we were there. Came back and they started rewriting. And the other incredible part of the process for me, other than the laughter, was the way I was allowed to participate and collaborate. The collaboration was so collaborative, and I had very specific ideas about Elaine, and Billy said, whatever, just email me what you're thinking, and then to see it in the script or some version of it in the script was so fulfilling. And I learned a phrase from Lowell called the arithmetic of the joke, and I knew what that was in working with Neil Simon. I had the privilege of working with Neil twice, and certainly in Laughter on the 23rd Floor, which was about writers in the writers' room. But I never heard it named when you know finding the arithmetic of the joke, and I just love that. You know.
Well, let's talk. I was going to get into some of your, you know, you've given us so many beautiful and memorable performances on Broadway. And I just want to mention a few of them. Tell me what comes to mind, a fun story or a great memory. Let's go into Neil Simon. Twice you got to work with him. What was it like? First of all, that cast, Nathan Lane, Laughter on the 23rd Floor. I mean, but being in the room with Neil Simon and like Nathan, what was that like?
I was intimidated. And I was one of two women in the room, but mostly one woman because Biddy wasn't on stage as a writer all the time. Biddy Schramm, another terrific actress. It took me a while to kind of like I'm very good at faking that I don't feel intimidated, but I was most definitely. But you know, the thing that was so cool about Neil Simon was that he wanted to be inspired. And so if you did something spontaneous, or if he saw you interpret a moment a certain way, you knew that, and he started laughing, and you knew that he really got you when he was laughing and he took his glasses off and he wiped his eyes. When you moved him, you know, to tears through laughter, you thought, okay, good, this is great. And then he would come back with a speech. There was a moment, just something that I was doing as Carol when she was pregnant in the second act, and there was a line about the baby. No, he actually wrote the line about the baby starting to drop off of something that I did with my eyes or some sound that I made that he thought was hilarious, and he came in the next day with a whole moment written about that. So that was incredibly cool. And when we were out of town at with Manny Eisenberg and Jerry Zaks, we were at Duke, Neil actually said he had never heard so much laughter in one of his shows before when we were there. I thought that's a lot. That's saying a lot.
Oh boy, what a company. Like I said, but being led by Nathan Lane, because Nathan's the same other thing, honing his comedy and the arithmetic of a joke too. I can only imagine when he found his way into everything, and then everything changed when the audience was added into the mix.
It just goes to prove to all those theater students out there, it really just goes to prove that this is a craft that you work at and hone. You don't just get up there and do it. You know, there is a craft or the arithmetic of the joke, and that part of the work is thrilling for me.
Yeah. Well, I want to get into City of Angels, your Tony Award winning turn. Another one of my favorite musicals. I love how half the show was done in black and white, half was done in color. How brilliantly done. I mean, just beautiful. I mean, that's of course a Cy Coleman, David Zippel. I mean, Larry Gelbart show. Favorite memories of City of Angels for you?
I think it was the verse to "You Can Always Count on Me." We were in the middle of 10 out of 12s. It was very late. It was getting close to midnight. And Cy was down at the piano with David Zippel, just kind of noodling around. And at that point, the song didn't have a verse. It just started with, "If you need a gal to go without salary, there wasn't. I'm one of a long line of good girls." That wasn't in yet. And they were down on the floor because that's usually where the piano is, in the middle of tech. And they said, "Randy, on a break, come on down, sing this." And on a little piece of paper, David had scribbled out some lyrics, and he said, "Sing this." And he kind of guided me along with the music, and I sang, and he said, "That's what was missing, a verse." So it's those kind of magical moments.
See, this is like old school when you used to hear of someone like, Adler and Ross writing A Little Brains, A Little Talent after a night in Damn Yankees on the Road, and Gwen Verdon put in at the matinee, which is to piano. I mean, it's just when you hear these people writing these songs on a piano, like, come out on a break, sing this verse, Randy. I mean, that's got to be incredible having Cy Coleman and David Zippel create something for you.
Yes. Yeah.
All right. Then you were a part of one of my favorite CDs, one of my favorite albums, Randy Graff sings Cy Coleman. I mean, how proud are you of that album?
Well, I'm so grateful. I'm so happy to hear that you still listen to it because it's been out a while. I was very proud of it. Of the and Cy is not precious. He was not precious about his songs, so he said, "Wherever you want to take them." So I took, Big Spender into a very kind of dark territory, and he just said, "Do whatever you want." And so Scotty Harlan and who did the arrangements, we worked together, and always from an acting point of view, and David Lawrence, who did the incredible orchestrations, and the band was so great. I'm still very, very proud of it. Yeah.
It's a great album. For anybody who hasn't listened to this, you must get a copy of this. Randy Graff sings Cy Coleman. You can stream it again, streaming services, anywhere you want to get it. But I just love all the arrangements. And Cy Coleman's one of my all-time favorite composers. And he was also one of the greatest guys in the world, too.
Yes. Yes. It was really fun doing research for that album because I would go over to his townhouse and he'd say, "Listen to this song, listen to that song." And he'd pull out all these trunk songs. That was thrilling. I miss him.
Yeah. So you're the original Broadway Fontaine. I mean, to me, there's you and there's everybody else. Because you created that here in New York. Yes. It was created on you and for you here on Broadway. I mean, did you know what when you were in rehearsal for Les Mis, did you have any idea how special this was really going to be?
No, I mean, it didn't get it. We knew it was a hit in London, right? But you never know what's going to happen when you get to New York. So I didn't. None of us really knew. And also, we were starting fresh, and Trevor Nunn and John Caird made sure that we knew that we weren't doing a replica of what was in London, and they were carving it out on us. And there was a lot of improv work. The first 2 weeks was all improv. And scenes like the lovely lady scene came out of an improv. The Paris beggar scene came out of an improv that we did at the Kennedy Center. And with the work that we did, they went and put that back into the London production. But I didn't, I had my head down. I had a lot of responsibility. I was the American actress who won Fontaine. I felt very honored, and I had a lot of work to do. So I was just concentrating on the work. And then a friend of mine called me and said, "You're on the buses." I said, "What do you mean?" She said, "Cosette's face, you're on the buses." I thought, okay, that was kind of the beginning of what's going on here, when I looked up.
What was everybody wanted that role here in New York. I mean, this was like one of those, like, oh my God, who's going to get Fontaine on Broadway? I mean, do you remember your callback or the call that came to you when you said you have it?
Oh, yes, vividly, because I was at Pittsburgh Civic Light Opera with the late, great Pat Quinn. and we were doing Fiddler on the Roof, and I was playing Seidel, and we were in the middle of the orchestra rehearsal of the Sitzprobe, and the whole company knew that I was waiting to hear because Patti LuPone had first refusal on the Broadway company, so I had to wait for her to decide. So they all knew that I was there waiting, and then during the Sitzprobe, we were on a break, and I went down to the payphone, no cell phones, went down to the payphone, past the stage manager's office, and there was a little note for me that said, call Johnson Liff, the casting director. I thought, this has to be it. They're not asking me to call to tell me I didn't get it. So I called, and Andy Zerman was an old friend, and Vinny was an old friend. This from Grease days, and I got on the phone with them, and they said, "Hi, Fontaine," and I literally started screaming. And Pat Quinn came down because he heard me, and he went, "You got it, you got Fontaine," and we were shushed. But that's how I found out.
That's crazy. Shush, like, hello, I'm going to be Fontaine. I'm Seidel now for a little while, but I'm going to be, I'm going to be Fontaine. Speaking of Fiddler, Alfred Molina, that beautiful production. I mean,
that was
how glorious.
That was the first time I met you on the red carpet.
Was it?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. It's funny. I knew you forever, but we weren't doing stuff early on. There was no Broadway Beat or BroadwayWorld then, so I wasn't doing red carpet stuff. But I think that was, I thought that production was so beautiful too. I loved the blue moonlight. I can remember everything about that production.
Yes, the blue and the gold, and Alfred Molina, who is my all-time. Don't want to hurt anybody else's feelings, but my all-time. We just had an incredibly special connection. Yeah,
he's a great guy. I used to run into him all the time at Joe Allen with my family. He'd be like, "Come on over, call me Fred." To my family,
call me Fred. Yes, completely humble.
Yeah.
A real actor's actor. He would go around at half hour at every performance, even on 2 show days, and wish everybody a good show. Went into every single dressing room. That's the kind of guy he was.
Yeah. He's such a nice man. He's just so humble, just sits and can sit with anybody. He's so great. Yeah. Going back to Grease for a second, did you go on in Grease?
For every role. I went on for Rizzo, for Marty, for Jan, for Frenchie, and for Cha-Cha. I went on for Cha-Cha opposite Peter Gallagher.
Yeah.
Yeah, those people, that cast, they've been running for a while. They called out if they had, a hangnail. They were really, really tired of it. So I went on a lot. Yeah.
It's funny. I loved Grease. I used to go back all the time. I looked at my old playbills. I saw Barry Bostwick. I saw Richard Gere play Sonny. Did you
play Sonny? I saw Richard Gere play Danny.
Yeah. He started as Sonny. Then I think he moved into Danny before he went to London.
Wow.
I saw so many. Jeff Conway. So many great. John Travolta. I saw do Duty.
And when I was understudying Patrick Swayze was also a Danny.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I loved Patrick Swayze, one of my all-time favorite people too. One of these days when you and I go out, I have so many wonderful Patrick Swayze.
We have to go out for cocktails.
All right, we're gonna do a Joe Allen night. You and I will go to Joe's one night, and we'll do something. All right, Sarah Vaughan, one of my favorite. I loved Sarah Vaughan too.
No,
Sarah Vaughan's in the closet. I have posters all over my house, so I love Sarah Vaughan. Of course, with Betty Walker first. I mean, I think I saw it at the Broadway first, then the Mark Hellinger.
It started at the Mark Hellinger, and then it moved to the Broadway. And you want to hear a great Sarah story? PJ Benjamin, right? We were getting ready to close Sarah. We were standing on the fire escape, and I was looking at the intersection of 52nd and Broadway. And I said to PJ, I wonder when I'm going to be back here. And my next show back was Les Mis in that theater.
At the same theater?
At the same theater, yeah.
That's wild. Okay, quickly, falsettos, incredible. William Finn, James Lapine.
Yeah, that's one of my favorites. That's one of my favorite roles, Trina, in falsettos. It's a bear, and I had to behave like a nun to be able to do it 8 times a week. But it was I replaced Barbara Walsh, who was wonderful and so generous when I stepped in for her. And I only did it for 10 weeks, and I wanted to do it more, but it was time for it to close.
Yeah. And then A Class Act, another one of these musicals, didn't have a long run, but has had a great life since then. Favorite memory of working on A Class Act?
Okay. I had to stop the show because I was choking on tuna fish. So before, note to self, do not eat a tuna fish sandwich before you do a scene with a song. I was getting ready to do the scene with Lonnie Price, one of my dear friends. I was just at his wedding, and he was best man at my wedding, introduced me to my husband. There's a lot of history there. So Lon and I were getting ready to do our scene where I sing Next Best Thing to Love to him. And I was before I went on, I was hungry, so I had a little bit of a tuna fish sandwich. And when I started to sing, I could, I had to stop. I stopped the show and I said to the audience, and there are people who still remember that performance, because I've had people come up to me and say, I was there when you ate the tuna fish sandwich and you stopped the show. Another great thing about live theater, you can't cut. I mean, you can cut. I cut. I mean, yeah. So I explained to the audience that I had just eaten some tuna fish sandwich, and I am choking. It's kind of stuck in my throat. And Lon said, "Rand, do you want some water?" He went off stage. He brought some water on for me. I had some water, and people were laughing and applauding. They loved it. And then I sang it again, but I had to get the out.
That's a great story.
That's my memory of A Class Act.
Listen, I could talk to you forever, but we're just about out of time. But I want to ask you, what do you hope audiences take away after watching Mr. Saturday Night when they stream it at home or wherever they are? What do you hope they walk away with?
I hope they hug their families, because and I know that they're going to laugh and have a wonderful time, but they're also going to be very moved by the family dynamics in the show. That's something, without giving away the story, it's a healing that has to happen between Buddy and his daughter and his brother. And I just want people to, and I know people relate to it, because when we do it, there is such a stillness in that house after, and then all of a sudden it turns into this play that deals with very tender issues of the heart and families, and that audience would get so quiet. And I just want you all to just hug your families after.
And then they'll laugh all over again after that, right?
Yes, yes.
Well, like I said, once again, Randy Graff co-stars alongside Billy Crystal in Mr. Saturday Night, a new musical comedy which is streaming now on Broadway HD. Now, Broadway HD was founded in 2015 by Tony Award-winning producers Stuart F. Lane and Bonnie Comley. It is the only streaming service offering premium, full-length stage plays and musicals captured specifically for multi-platform viewing to theater fans across the globe. In addition to exclusive live stream content of the world's best productions, they also offer subscribers unlimited on-demand access to a library of more than 300 theater productions from Broadway, the West End, and beyond. So if you can't get to Broadway, look no further than Broadway HD. Randy, this has been great catching up with you, my friend.
You too. And I can't wait to do it live at Joe Allen's.
All right. Love to your husband. Everybody, go watch Mr. Saturday Night. Stay safe, and we'll see you at the theater. Take care, everyone.
Mr. Saturday Night! Don't get me started. I'm glad I brought a little joy. Your hearse is waiting at the door. I'm glad that I can bring some laughter and cheer to everyone here.
When did you start being funny?
It should be any moment now, Gene. $13,000? Just take it. No, but you could use this.
No, over the years I stole thousands from you.
The world could use a little joy. Happy 45th anniversary. 11 of the happiest years of my life. Come here. There you go. Oh, good. No diaper. No diaper.